Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are really digging into something pretty stunning that unfolded this NFL season.
Yeah, the Tennessee Titans firing coach Brian Callahan. Just 6 games into his second season, that's fast.
Incredibly fast. So our mission today is to unpack the sources you sent us, look at the history, the performance failures, obviously, and the pressures that led to this. I mean, pulling the plug that quickly.
It really feels like it.
Callahan ends up 4-19 overall. That includes a 1-1-5 start this year. So you really have to ask, how catastrophically bad does it need to be for a team, especially one saying they have a strategic plan, to just ditch it 6 games into year 2?
That's the core tension, isn't it? It's that aspiration versus the harsh reality on the field. We found President of Football Operations Chad Brinker talking a lot about commitment, a patient and strategic plan.
Right, patience.
But that patience, well, it just couldn't hold up against the facts. The numbers showing, as he put it, no sufficient growth. It seems like whatever internal timeline they had just got blown up by what everyone could see happening each Sunday.
Okay, let's dig into those numbers then, because year 2 feels early, but 4-19, that's not just a slump.
No, it's systematic losing territory. And 4-19 overall is bad, but you have to put it in a historical context for the franchise.
How bad are we talking historically?
We're talking almost the worst ever. In the entire history of the Titans, going back to the Houston Oilers days, only one coach had a worse record. Ken Whisenhunt.
Whisenhunt. He was 320.
Exactly. 320. So Callahan's 4-19 puts him right in that same conversation.
Yeah.
And when you're hitting those kinds of historic lows, patience runs out fast. It becomes less about rebuilding and more about stopping the bleeding.
An existential crisis, you called it. And if the record was the crisis, the offense was definitely the main symptom. It was just awful this season.
Awful is putting it mildly. And abyss is a good word for it. The data shows through 6 games, just 83 points scored. 83.
Which in today's NFL, that's almost unbelievable.
It is. But it gets worse when you compare it historically. ESPN's research found this is the fewest points the franchise has scored through 6 games since 1985.
Wow, 1985. Why is that specific year so significant? I mean, the game's changed completely since then.
That's precisely why it's so damning. 1985, that was, smash mouth football. Defenses could practically mug receivers.
Right, different rules entirely.
Completely different. Lower scoring was the norm league-wide. So for a modern offense, playing under rules designed to boost scoring, to perform at a level not seen since that era, it just shows a total systemic failure. Scheme, execution, everything. They weren't just bad, they were basically non-functional by 2025 standards.
It almost feels like the team accepted the 3-14 record last year, his first year, because it landed them something valuable.
Right. That first season, ending 3-14, it was maybe strategically okay because, it got them the #1 overall pick in the draft.
The prize.
The prize, exactly. Maybe that losing was sort of tolerable because it was supposed to set up the future. Yeah. But then this year started, and the performance just didn't deliver any of that promised growth.
So the future looked just like the miserable past.
Or maybe even worse, offensively speaking. So that strategic plan, it had to take a back seat to just pure damage control.
And the centerpiece of that future, the #1 pick, is quarterback Cam Ward. When you invest that kind of draft capital, that level of hope in one guy, well, everything changes, doesn't it? The pressure ramps up immediately, especially on the head coach.
Oh, massively. And what's really interesting here is this pattern we see with these #1 pick quarterbacks. The stats we looked at show that with Callahan getting fired, the last 4 QBs taken #1 overall have seen their head coach fired during their rookie season.
4 straight?
Yep, and it's 6 of the last 8, actually.
So is that like a genuine curse, or is it just something else, a symptom of bad teams drafting high?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I tend to think it's less a curse and more just confirmation. Teams drafting #1 overall are usually pretty dysfunctional to begin with.
Right, the coach might already be on thin ice.
Exactly. So drafting the supposed savior QB just turns up the heat. Suddenly it's not about rebuilding anymore, it's win now with this guy. And any failure gets magnified like crazy.
And that pressure wasn't just internal from the front office. It absolutely spilled over. We saw it with the fans pretty early on. That Week 3 game against the Colts, a 41-20 loss.
Yeah, reports said fans were booing at halftime, even chanting, "Fire Callahan!" That's loud.
And then things seemed to really implode internally after Week 4, losing 26-0 to the Texans.
Ugh, yeah. Getting shut out is bad enough, but by a division rival. And it was a battle of winless teams at that point. They didn't even make it into the red zone. That's a definite crisis point.
And right after that game, the crisis got a voice. Cam Ward, the #1 pick, he just let loose. He said, quoting here, "If we keeping it a buck right now or ass?"
Wow. Yeah, I remember seeing that quote. We have to pause on that one. That is explosive.
Right.
When the guy you've pinned the franchise's entire future on starts talking like that, using that kind of language publicly, it signals a complete breakdown. Culture, control, everything.
It's different than just a frustrated veteran venting.
Totally different. This is your hopeful leader, the face of the franchise, basically tearing down the team identity in public. That sends a massive signal to ownership.
Yeah.
The coach has lost the locker room, and maybe more importantly, he's lost the star rookie.
It really feels like that quote must have forced management's hand, or at least sped things up. Did Callahan try anything to stop the slide?
He did make a change, yeah. Turned over play calling duties last month to Bo Hardegree, the quarterback's coach. An attempted shakeup.
But too little, too late.
Seems like it. By that point, the lack of points, the fan anger, Ward's comments, the writing was probably on the wall. Management just needed that final statistical justification, and, well, the next couple of games provided it.
So the pressure cooker was about to explode, but management needed that final push, that confirmation of insufficient growth. And the last 2 games really delivered that, didn't they?
They did. There was that brief moment against the Cardinals, a 22-21 win.
But even that felt shaky. Arizona blew a huge 21-3 lead for them to win.
Exactly. It wasn't exactly a convincing display of dominance, more like stumbling into a win.
Yeah.
And then came the finisher.
The Raiders game.
The Raiders game. A really frustrating 2010 loss on Sunday. And that loss, specifically, was the team's 4th loss this season by 10 points or more.
4th time losing by double digits already.
Yeah, and the data showed that was the most by any team in the NFL at that point. So they weren't just losing, they were often getting blown out, or at least losing non-competitively, which is pretty much the opposite of growth.
Let's circle back to that management phrase, insufficient growth. Brinker said, "While we are committed to a patient and strategic plan, we have not demonstrated sufficient growth." What does that actually mean in a rebuild? It's not just wins and losses, right?
No, not necessarily. Growth in that context usually means hitting certain internal benchmarks. Things like, is the rookie QB improving his efficiency? Are penalties going down? Are they playing better in the 4th quarter, even in losses?
Stuff you can measure beyond the final score.
Precisely. And those 4 losses by 10-plus points, that suggests regression, not growth. It suggests they weren't learning how to stay in games, how to compete against even average teams. Brinker made sure to mention Callahan's character was good.
Right, he stressed it was a tough decision.
Which tells you this was purely about performance, about hitting, or rather missing, those internal metrics. The organizational patience just completely evaporated.
Okay, now pivot to the optics here, because this is where it gets really dramatic. Callahan was only hired last year because the owner, Amy Adams Strunk, made that huge call to fire Mike Vrabel.
A coach who'd had real success, 2 AFC South titles, competitiveness year after year.
And firing him was framed as this necessary step towards a new vision, a more modern approach, you know?
Exactly. It was sold as progress. And now, well, now you see the incredible, almost unbelievable irony. The owner made that tough call, moved on from success for this new vision.
And the new vision just completely imploded.
Blew up in spectacular fashion.
Yeah.
And the timing couldn't possibly be worse.
It's almost cinematic.
It really is. Because Vrabel, the guy they basically said wasn't part of the future, he's coming back to Nashville, to Nissan Stadium, this Sunday.
As head coach of the Patriots.
As head coach of the 4-2 New England Patriots, who are sitting 2nd in their division.
Yeah.
It's just, the contrast couldn't be more stark. You have the fired, successful coach returning, currently winning, facing the team that fired him, which is now in absolute turmoil after firing his replacement.
It's brutal. You fire the winner for strategic growth. The growth doesn't happen. The replacement gets fired after barely a season and a half. And now you have to face the guy you fired who is winning.
Forget the stats for a second. Those optics alone tell you everything about the depth of the crisis in Tennessee right now. That whole strategic plan looks like a complete failure. #ITrackUp.
So wrapping this up, what does this deep dive tell us? The Callahan firing boils down to, well, a historically bad record, 4-19, an offense that was performing like it was 1985, and just immense pressure trying to develop a #1 pick while the team fell apart publicly.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway is just how ruthless NFL management has to be sometimes. That commitment to a patient strategic plan. It sounds good, but it often just can't survive the kind of overwhelming evidence, both statistical and public, showing total regression.
Especially with a potential franchise QB involved.
Especially then, when your number one pick is publicly calling the team ass, you basically have no choice. You have to make a change, if only to try and salvage the development of your biggest investment.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. The Titans haven't named an interim coach yet as of this recording. Now, given all this drama, the super quick firing, the awful record, and the incredible distraction of Mike Vrabel returning this Sunday.
Yeah, that return is going to dominate the conversation all week. Fan reaction, media comparisons.
Exactly. So what factors, beyond just trying to win a game, does ownership need to weigh right now? Who do you pick to try and stabilize that locker room after such a public, messy failure? That decision, picking the interim, feels almost as critical as the firing itself for the rest of their season.